But look, if the country is spinning out all this huge amount of wealth, this hundreds of billions of dollars worth of increased GDP, where is it all going? In terms of income inequality, if you compare the lowest 10% of Canadians to the top 10%, or the lowest 20% of Canadians to the top 20% of Canadians, and then compare it to people in other countries around the world, in terms of income inequality in Canada, we are a shocking, disgraceful, disgusting 40th. Does that tell you a little bit about where the money is going? Hugh Mackenzie, the economist, has this anecdote that he loves to tell about that after doing some statistical evaluations. He says that the average CEO in Canada on the 2nd of January, when he goes to work for the first day in the course of the year, by the time he has his morning coffee, he has already earned more than the average Canadian worker earns during the entire course of the year. You saw, I'm sure you saw the figures from StatsCan that came out a couple of weeks ago that were naturally slammed by the National Post about income inequality, because it didn't jibe with the editorial line of the National Post, and then guys like Terence Corcoran and others go berserk when that happens. He was right, though. Terence Corcoran was right, because it's wrong to assume that the broad middle class of Canada didn't make any gains at all over those 25 years from, let's see, up until, I guess, 2005, from 1980 to 2005. I took my calculator out and I went to work with some StatsCan figures, and there wasn't, in fact, a gain by the broad middle class, the majority of Canadians. Over the last 25 years, people like all of you in this room and me and our friends, etc., our relatives, etc., we actually gained, on average, the wonderful total of $2.12 a year over the last 25 years. You know, enough for half of a latte or whatever. Now here's what I'm going to ask you to guess, but don't cheat if you've already heard me on the radio or read the book. I'm going to ask you a question. Take the broad, huge middle group of Canadian families, 94% of Canadian families. That's pretty close to a lot, isn't it? 94% of Canadian families. I want somebody to guess as to what percentage of total family wealth that the broad 94% of Canadian families owns. 12%? Wouldn't you think that's awfully low?
I think I'm too high.
Anybody else want to take a guess? 94% of Canadian families own what percent of wealth? 20%. Okay? Okay, 94% of Canadian families, that's a lot. 94% own the grand total of 3% of family wealth in this country. Now, what does that tell you about what has happened to our economy and who has the muscle and the wealth to be influential in this country? Let's talk about corporate profits. I don't know about you, but I'm getting sick and tired of hearing the Jack Minces of the world and the Tom DeQuinos of the world bellyache about Canadian taxes, and Canada's a very tough place to do business in. In 1992, corporate profits in Canada were 4.7% of gross domestic product. Today, they're closer to 16% of gross domestic product. Corporate profits in Canada have been higher than in the United States for 16 of the last 24 years. So next time you hear some guy from big business bellyaching about the fact that this is a tough place to do business and corporate taxes are way too high in Canada, you tell them, where are you getting your information from? In fact, the last 4 consecutive years, corporate Canada has made all-time record profits far beyond the dreams of any businessman in this country. Huge profits. Now, what are they doing with that money? One would think that given the fact that their taxes are so much lower now, and again, taxes in Canada, corporate taxes in Canada are way below American corporate taxes today, conversely to what you hear from almost everything that comes out of the Chamber of Commerce. And we have one of the, let's see, where is it? We're 27th in the world in terms of our percentage of corporate taxes as a percentage of gross domestic product. So, given the fact that the Canadian dollar has gone up so high, and given the fact that corporate taxes are so low and that profits are so high, given the fact that any economist that you talk to will tell you that the whole secret in an increasingly competitive world is for we Canadians, you know, China, India, Brazil, Indonesia, etc., etc. Everybody knows the world is becoming increasingly competitive. Any economist will tell you the key has got to be increased productivity, that we can't just live on natural resources forever, that we've got to increase our productivity to increase our standards of living. That's 9,900 out of whatever economists believe that that's the case. Okay, well, wouldn't that mean that these incredibly wealthy businessmen, I'm talking about big business now, not the average guy who runs a corner store or whatever, we're 18th now in the investment of new machinery and equipment. Well, how the heck can we be competitive with other countries if we're 18th in buying new machinery and equipment? And in research and development, you got to do research and development, of course, and you got to be innovative and come up with new materials and new inventions, etc. Of the 30 OECD countries, ladies and gentlemen, we're 25th in research and development. 25th. And in our patents per million people in Canada, we're 30th of the 30 OECD countries. And you could draw an interesting pair of lines, blank piece of paper, top left to bottom right, and this is what's happened to corporate taxes, and a line that goes straight downhill at a 45-degree angle. And what also goes straight downhill at a 45-degree angle is our productivity in Canada. Hey, wait a minute, is that the way it was supposed to work? No, the way it was supposed to work is that if you reduce corporate taxes, our productivity will go way up, and we'll become more affluent. So next time you hear somebody say taxes are too high in Canada, you tell them this. Of the 30 OECD countries, corporate taxes were 27th. There are 26 countries have got higher levels of corporate taxes than we do. And overall, when you consider all kinds of taxes, when you consider property taxes and GST and automobile taxes and et cetera, we're 21st out of 30. So when somebody says to you, hey, we're way overtaxed in this country, you say to him or her, compared to where? I mean, compared to the United States? Do you really want to have tens of millions of your fellow citizens, men, women, and children, that don't have health insurance? Do you really want to have a situation where hundreds of thousands of families are bankrupted every year because they're unable to pay their medical bills? I don't think, the polls show quite clearly that unlike the people I talked to in the conclusion of this book, most Canadians are not that interested, thank you very much, in the direction that Mr. Harper and quite a few others want to take us. The World Economic Forum produces an annual report on competitiveness. And as corporate taxes have gone down, we've gone from 3rd place in competitiveness to 7th place to 9th place, and now we're in 14th place in competitiveness. Not exactly the way it was supposed to work.